Hello, I'm Kelly. It's a privilege to interview Lynn, the founder of IvyPedia. Today, we have the incredible Lynn, a prominent figure in advocating and raising awareness about sexual harassment within the study abroad community. His work has greatly influenced and impacted how we report and address this issue. Since 2016, Lynn has been consistently reporting on these incidents, which have been read by more than 1 million people. So I would like to ask you, Lynn, in the past year you have continuously reported on many sexual harassment incidents in the international community. Writing articles about sexual harassment is remarkable because it's still a taboo subject where few openly discuss it. This made me curious about the opportunity or motive that drove you to address this matter. Were there any concerns associated with tackling this sensitive issue?
Sexual harassment is a very serious problem, and then there is a sense of justice in your heart, and you will want to speak up for the disadvantaged or some of the people involved, because at that time, in fact, in 2016 or maybe 7 or 8 years ago, the public opinion environment at that time was probably more oppressive than it is now. At that time, it was actually very, very controversial for me to post that kind of article. Many students and parents questioned my motives and whether the victims had done something inappropriate or wrong. At that time, I felt that the victim guilt theory was very, very bad, and I wanted to make people more aware of the problem. It was a subconscious move for me to do these reports at that time, and I felt that I wanted to write something to spread the correct values, including reminding international students to be careful in preventing similar incidents.
I find it quite impressive that you have the courage to write articles like this, despite being under immense pressure. Given your significant number of followers and influence, people must think that you are responsible for what you say. What kind of process do you usually go through to write these articles?
Usually, it is typically either the parties involved in a sexual harassment case or a source with official authority that frequently reaches out to us aiming to request our assistance. Our platform maintains significant influence, resulting in numerous students who have occasionally contributed to it, feeling obliged to approach us for help. To ensure the credibility of the information we provide, I regularly engage in a thorough cross-examination before making any details publicly available. However, my publications primarily rely on established facts, rather than speculating about the intentions and potential consequences of the individuals involved. Furthermore, in the aftermath of reporting such incidents, I consistently incorporate safety tips that empower students with comprehensive guidance on effective measures to enhance their safety while attending school. I believe it is crucial to spread knowledge on sexuality, which includes educating on how to prevent the various methods commonly employed by the individuals with malicious intentions.
Do you go through the comments once you've posted an article? Do you observe if the majority of comments are positive or negative in nature?
I think the change in people's attitudes is very obvious. Just now, in 2016, 2017, when I first started to report on incidents of sexual harassment, including similar incidents of international students and some professors in US universities, people questioned or even attacked the victims. During that time, a significant number of individuals engaged in malicious speculation about whether the victims were at fault. However, in contrast to those times, I have noticed that a majority of people, reflecting progress in society, are now more inclined to raise their voices in support of the victims and openly condemn those who have mistreated them. This represents a notable change, as previously a large portion of the comments were negative, whether directed towards me or the victims. However, the present situation is different, with more people actively condemning such behavior. This shift can be attributed to the growing awareness among individuals, indicating substantial progress we have made.
Did you consider the potential impact on the victims before sharing their stories? The act of spreading these events could either give them a voice or cause them additional harm. It's important to remember that sharing their stories is a double-edged sword, as it might offer support while subjecting them to secondary victimization. Are there any areas that you feel would be helpful to them?
From my encounters with these victims or survivors, it is clear that one of the most distressing aspects for them is the fact that the true wrongdoers, or simply put, the criminals, have managed to evade legal consequences successfully. They have either managed to entirely escape justice or slyly eluded punishment, whether it be from the educational institution they attended or from law enforcement. The dismissive attitude towards their transgressions or their ability to disappear without facing any repercussions is extremely unsettling for these individuals, and they view it as completely unacceptable. Through my various discussions with countless individuals who have experienced harm, it has become evident that a significant number of them possess a strong desire for justice. They long for the perpetrators to bear legal consequences and be held accountable by the criminal justice system. I perceive this demand to be one of the fundamental pillars of their cause. Consequently, my strategy revolves around generating increased attention towards the issue and applying more pressure on the perpetrator. Moreover, my endeavors are aimed at raising awareness among a broader audience. It is my hope that individuals who possess greater knowledge about this matter will be encouraged to speak out when they observe that someone has already expressed their opinion. In fact, there have been previous instances in which, after I published an article detailing a student's sexual assault of another student, numerous additional victims came forward to condemn the act and report it to both the local authorities and the school. Hence, I firmly believe that my actions are instigating a positive transformation. Nonetheless, it is occasionally inevitable that reporting such matters could inflict further harm upon the victim in particular cases. Nonetheless, if the victim reaches out to me and conveys a desire for me not to address this issue publicly, I will swiftly remove the article without any hesitation. I hold a firm conviction that the right mindset should be proliferated while simultaneously prioritizing the well-being of the victim. This entails promoting the correct ideas without causing any additional harm to those who have already endured suffering.
It is likely that not only the victim, but also the exposed person will contact you.
Indeed.
Have you ever been in a similar situation before? How do you typically react when faced with this type of situation? Do you tend to disregard it, or do you address it in some way?
I have been repeatedly contacted by one or multiple abusers who use an intermediary, proxy, or agent to reach me. The typical request is quite straightforward. They want me to delete a specific post. However, I refuse to comply unless they can provide compelling evidence that the information they are trying to suppress is inaccurate. Their primary concern seems to be protecting their own reputation. This pattern has occurred numerous times, and I consistently stand my ground unless they substantiate their claims. If the alleged aggressor can provide actual evidence, I might consider deleting the post. However, most of the time, the things I report are statements I have made previously, often revealed through cross-examination. It's worth noting that I have received letters from lawyers, some of which were threatening. In such cases, I generally refrain from deleting the post, unless there is real evidence that I have defamed or purposely tarnished someone's reputation. The majority of our reported articles, including events, are based on factual information, further reinforcing my decision not to remove them unless genuine evidence is presented to prove that I have acted maliciously in damaging someone's reputation. I usually don't find it easy to delete a post. It's because I believe in the importance of spreading the right message. That's why I feel the urge to report such articles, as I strongly believe that they are truly detrimental with a very negative impact. Furthermore, they set a dreadful example for future students or individuals, especially when perpetrators manage to escape legal consequences. It increases the likelihood of others following this negative behavior. So, I earnestly hope that these wrongdoers are sanctioned by the law or by the educational institution. Alternatively, they should be subjected to public pressure at the very least. By doing so, we can work towards reducing the occurrence of similar incidents in the future.
One possibility is that school investigations take too long, prolonging the suffering of victims. Additionally, it may be that the police lack effectiveness in handling these matters, further complicating the situation. Each year, a high number of international students undergo such traumatic experiences, and unfortunately, many of these cases remain unresolved.
I actually think that if I have to find a reason, I think it's because nowadays international students are overly pursuing some so-called traditional sense of excellence branding. You want to go to a good school, you want to find a good job, and in the process you actually tend to have a lot of mental health problems. I strongly believe that the mental well-being of international students is often neglected, causing many individuals to suffer from mental health issues and even emotional disturbances. This problem arises when their mental health concerns are not addressed, and it can lead them to engage in inappropriate behaviors. Therefore, it is crucial that we prioritize the mental health of international students and provide them with the necessary support. It is essential to note that individuals who exhibit abusive behavior are completely reprehensible. However, it is important to recognize that these actions do not usually occur suddenly. They usually follow a gradual process, starting from seemingly harmless behaviors and escalating to the point of sexual harassment. These individuals may initially engage in playful behavior, but get drawn into it further, ultimately becoming trapped. The lack of condemnation for such actions contributes to this process, and, combined with increasing pressure, leads to psychological perversion and distortion. Ultimately, these individuals may resort to committing such acts. Therefore, in my opinion, placing importance on encouraging international students to achieve personal and professional success is not inherently wrong. However, we must also prioritize the mental well-being of international students equally alongside this emphasis, providing them with the necessary resources and support to ensure their overall mental health. Mental health is an incredibly vital matter, and it's indeed valid that individuals can occasionally become mentally unhinged under stressful situations, resulting in mental aberrations.
I know that there are a lot of social media accounts that reveal sexual harassment incidents within the international student community. It makes me wonder about your perspective on these social media accounts. How do you view the interests, motivations, and differences between genuine information and mere gossip, such as those in PDF documents? Furthermore, which form do you prefer in terms of presenting such content? Do you perceive it more as voyeurism or entertainment? Lastly, what approach would be the most effective in resolving disagreements regarding this matter?
I think each of these two methods has its own advantages and disadvantages. After all, I am a relatively influential platform on my end, and I generally wouldn't release information that involves personal privacy, including what some might call gossip. I'm generally based on facts, and I don't emphasize details. And I know that nowadays, including a lot of times, we have a lot of followers, and our fans will ask me for details. In many cases, I do have them, but I don't spread them. But I know a lot of international students are curious about this stuff. But I think the more people who know this thing, including the aggressor's information and some relevant knowledge of the people, the better. Because sexual harassment is a very, very bad thing. I think we should go beyond just gossiping, but the most important thing is to, first, raise your own awareness, and second, to be alert to some of these people around you. Thirdly, if you've done something similar before, or if you've had thoughts of sexually harassing other people, I believe that exposure to certain types of content should serve as a warning. Seeing perpetrators held accountable by the law should prompt personal reflection on the value and consequences of such actions. Ultimately, this contributes to a safer environment for everyone. Therefore, regardless of the medium through which this information is disseminated, I personally hope that such messages can be spread more widely to foster awareness and caution. But I believe it is better to spread this information instead of remaining submerged, because more individuals will be informed of it. In my opinion, the welfare of international students, both in terms of their mental and physical well-being, is of utmost importance to all of us.
The gossip PDF, despite its controversial reputation, can serve a purpose if used respectfully without violating privacy.
When discussing PDFs of gossip content, I have pointed out that there are advantages and disadvantages to this type of information. The advantage is that it attracts more interest and allows more people to learn about events. However, the disadvantage is that gossip often contains exaggerated or fabricated information, and sometimes even involves defamation. For example, a person may be wrongly accused of doing something he did not do. This may be because he has offended someone. Therefore, we all need to maintain rational and dialectical thinking while enjoying gossip, especially when it involves much privacy. Not everything you see is true, so we must examine this information critically while maintaining that awareness.
I have noticed that you've recently posted on a male student at Columbia University who was subjected to harassment and false accusations and subsequently received compensation from the university. I'm curious, most of your previous posts are incidences where women are victims, but as you mentioned the need to remain rational, there are also situations where men are victimized.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how the gender perspective, including topics such as feminism, complicates the issue when discussing issues such as sexual harassment.
The default assumption, based on our traditional beliefs, is often that boys will act violently towards girls. This presupposes that boys are more likely to commit acts of violence against girls. In reality, girls may sometimes sexually harass boys, as well as girls harassing girls and boys harassing boys. These situations happen, and it's important that we acknowledge them. We should avoid jumping to conclusions based on appearances alone. For instance, just because a boy is handsome or a girl is beautiful doesn't mean they wouldn't engage in such behavior. We need to examine the facts, specific cases, and real evidence. It's crucial not to make one-sided judgments or hastily convict. These actions are irresponsible and unjust.
How did you find out about this information, this recent one from Colombia?
This case was actually a legal tug-of-war in the United States that lasted more than 5 years, and it was actually a very controversial matter at the time, because Columbia University, as many of the viewers know, has had a lot of similar problems at the school before. So the school was actually taking this more seriously. It is probably because Columbia University took this matter too seriously that it was pressured to go too fast to punish the boy who was supposedly accused, and in the end it was confirmed that he was indeed wrongly accused. In fact, since this incident happened in 2017, I have been paying attention to this matter. In the end, of course, after such a long time of a legal tug-of-war, the boy finally proved that he was wrongly accused. So I think this actually sets a very good example. That is, do not go to wrongly accuse others. Of course, if you really did this thing, you have to be sanctioned by the law. We must protect the truth at all costs and strive to reveal it, ensuring the safety of more individuals. It is our duty to hold on to the truth with utmost sincerity and work towards safeguarding as many people as possible.
Where do you believe our responsibility lies as viewers? Sharing articles you have previously shared, do you feel a sense of empowerment? In a personal capacity, I consider retweeting to be a valuable and positive action. How do you perceive our role as viewers in this particular context?
It is good to forward and spread important information. I emphasize that, but at the same time I respect everyone's choices, and do not mean that others must be forced to do so. I would suggest that if you are exposed to this type of information and have an increased sense of precaution, you should try to share it with your friends, especially those close to you. This is not to spread ideas needlessly, but because an increased sense of self-preparedness can help avoid many dangerous situations. Many times abusers have similar patterns of behavior or red flags, and identifying these can prevent potential danger. I believe that you don't have to forward this, but I sincerely hope that if you come across something like this, you can share it with your closest friends, whether they're your best friend or close friends. This way, we can all work together to stay vigilant and prevent any negative situations.
Can you please provide an explanation of the process involved when investigating the victim, either directly or through their friends, in addition to the cross-examination mentioned in your article? Specifically, I would like to know the general steps taken in this process.
In general, I will search for the school in the event that an incident occurs within its premises. I will then look for the student involved, as well as their friends, which may include the victim themselves or their best friend. Often, victims lack the strength or confidence to come forward, and in these cases, their friends may report the incident on their behalf. You may be familiar with this situation, as there is a distressing statistic about US universities. It reveals that a significant number of sexual harassment or assault cases on college campuses go unreported, amounting to over 60 to 70%. Consequently, many victims tell their close friends, who then take the initiative to inform the authorities. This reluctance to report highlights a broader societal issue and indicates a lack of trust or support for victims. In many cases, the victims themselves make the report because they may be concerned, firstly, that it will take a long time, secondly, that they will be victimized twice, and thirdly, that the abuser will get away with it in the end. Therefore, articulating one's thoughts is of utmost importance in this particular scenario. Additionally, I intend to investigate the matter at hand thoroughly. Due to the United States' strict privacy law, it is crucial to emphasize that the school officials cannot verify the situation. This law prohibits schools from discussing any student's circumstances. This rule is applicable even if the student has violated the law or the school's regulations. Thus, it amplifies the necessity for individual action.
You mentioned earlier that you encountered multiple lawsuits and faced various challenges. Can you share with us how you effectively dealt with these situations? Additionally, what is the driving belief that factors into your perseverance despite the tremendous pressure you experience?
You're saying specifically that it's about continuing to spread these articles, right? Going back to what I said earlier, that there is still a sense of justice in the heart. I think most international students have a sense of justice in their hearts. They will be furious when they see this kind of thing, and they will definitely want to go and get rid of it. The individual who committed the abuse is held accountable within the legal system, and further action is taken to support the victim. I believe this is the biggest reason I started, because I possess the platform and capability to execute it. Or a lot of people, they'll have an expectation of me that they'll tell us something like that because they think that telling me can create a safe environment. I personally view myself as a highly moral individual who is more than willing to provide assistance and support to the members of the marginalized community. I'm always ready to lend a hand and empower those who face difficulties in expressing their concerns. I firmly believe that this responsibility falls upon me due to the increased expectations and standards set by others. Essentially, this further strengthens my commitment to upholding these values. However, in the event that someone were to send me a personal attack or unsupported information, I would refrain from sharing it. My primary goal is to create awareness about the significance of self-prevention, rather than contributing to the dissemination of unfounded allegations. It is not our duty to encourage such actions. We must avoid doing so with utmost caution and responsibility.
After writing this article, would you consider allowing the victim or someone close to them to proofread the piece? It is often helpful to have another person review the content
Yes.
before finalizing it.
It typically depends on my ability to contact those individuals. I do take the initiative to reach out frequently, but in numerous instances I refrain from doing so. For instance, there have already been situations where I haven't reached out to certain people. For example, suppose there is a recent incident in which the person has been suspended from the university, and there are official documents related to it. In that case, I will probably report it directly because there is already an official report. Or suppose there is an incident where an international student from one of the top 20 universities in the US has been arrested by the US police, and there is a police report on such an incident. In that case, I will report it as soon as possible, so that everyone can be careful to prevent this person from being arrested.
What are your thoughts on female boxers? For instance, in a cross-examination scenario, someone may argue that these women intentionally employ sexual harassment as a strategy to target others. This could be perceived as akin to a feminist tactic, much like a female boxer. If a person expressed this viewpoint to you, how would it impact you and what would be your response?
It's a rather controversial issue, and I don't think I can say it very well. But I think, again, we have to respect the facts of what happened, including when you're blaming someone, you have to find out if it happened or not, to what extent it happened. A girl may wrong a boy, or a girl may wrong a girl, and a boy may wrong a boy, and a boy may wrong a girl, and I'm sure there will be this kind of wrongdoing. This kind of situation will arise. I think this situation is definitely not good. I think in the end we should speak with the facts, and then use the weapons of the law to protect ourselves.
We just talked about how girls and boys should protect themselves. As a teacher who has been in this field for many years, what would you recommend that people pay attention to?
This is actually something very common sense from my point of view, but I think there are really a lot of international students after all. Everyone is very busy with their studies when they go abroad nowadays. While pursuing personal development, it is important to recognize that many students, especially international students, often lack social experience. As a result, some basic safety advice, although it may sound cliched, is still very important and often overlooked. For example, try to avoid walking alone at night. This advice applies to everyone, regardless of gender. Similarly, no one, regardless of gender, should ride in a stranger's vehicle. Even if the offer of help seems well-intentioned, it may conceal risks. It is crucial to trust our own instincts and intuition. When we sense that something is not right, it is important to pay attention as there might be a genuine issue. Therefore, it is preferable to stay on the safe side rather than taking risks which could lead to inconvenience. It is absolutely all right to refuse certain offers or situations. For instance, if someone offers you a bottle of wine, do not feel embarrassed to decline, and simply say that you prefer water instead. This is perfectly acceptable. It is important to have the courage to say no, regardless of whether you are a boy or a girl. Sometimes individuals are influenced by social pressure, which can lead them down a dangerous path of temptation. It is crucial to avoid falling into the traps set by these temptations. Therefore, having the audacity to say no plays a vital role, including refraining from engaging in needless conversations.
Well, actually, I think sexual harassment could also be sending harassing messages and so on. Can you elaborate on the various forms of sexual harassment? I think many people may not be able to make a clear distinction between normal pursuit and sexual harassment.
I have to preface this by saying that I am not an expert in the legal field, so I can't define what the law states. However, as far as I understand it, if someone explicitly rejects any kind of conversation, continuous attempts to contact or engage with them could be considered stalking. Additionally, any form of physical or verbal aggression could be classified as sexual harassment. The aforementioned examples illustrate this point. Like you just said in this example, maybe one person is pursuing another person who has already said no, and in that case you keep trying to contact or escalate your relationship in various ways. I think that's sexual harassment in my understanding. Yeah, in my opinion, it must be clearly stated with consent, although sometimes it might not be the case. In the United States, there is a strong emphasis on the fact that no means no. Many might argue that some individuals are only half-hearted in their refusal. Personally, I strongly disagree with this notion. I firmly believe that when someone says no, it should be respected as a definite refusal. Both parties must be unequivocal in their intentions before proceeding any further. If there is any doubt, it is vital to ensure that the other person truly wants to proceed. Failing to do so can be considered as sexual harassment.
Thank you so much to Lynn for sharing today.
Thank you very much.
If there are any future needs, we hope to reach out to Lynn for more incident exposure or further sexual harassment education efforts.
Thank you very much.